So please identify yourself, your name and your organization.
I'm Scott Smith, Chief Scientist with Water Defense. It's a nonprofit organization that fingerprints water, goes into disasters, and helps communities.
And we're here at the Dan River, the site of a very large coal ash spill from Duke Energy Company. And can you tell us a little bit about the spill, and what types of chemicals may be in the water, and maybe the toxicity rates, and what the dangers are?
Yes, first of all, 27 million gallons of water contaminated with coal ash spilled. I'm told it's the third largest spill in the history of the United States. And the metals in coal ash can include arsenic, mercury, lead, a variety of other metals that are dangerous too. And we're not sure yet because we just completed water testing today. And no one's testing for semi-volatiles too. We have, usually in their spills, there's usually semi-volatiles. A couple things that are interesting about this spill is there is no transparency. The state of North Carolina is doing testing, but they're not revealing their protocols or where they're testing. The other significant thing is it's instantaneous water testing, and all that means they're taking an instant grab sample for a split second. What we do is we use a different technology to test for the contamination over time, or what accumulates or bioaccumulates over time. And it's a pretty simple premise, is that you don't breathe air for a split second, and you don't bathe for a split second. You don't swim if you're a fish in the water. You're not. So what we're able to do today is be able to track what accumulated in a 3-hour period and an 8-hour period, and what the parts per million were. And we'll have those results mid next week.
So I understand they're doing instantaneous testing, but it sounds like the accumulations may vary over time. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, the accumulations, how it bioaccumulates in these metals. You know, again, if you're a fish, and if they have an instantaneous test that says they're 0.2 parts per million, well, if you're in the water a split second, that may mean something. But if you're in the water for permanently, you live there, you're a fish, or you're a kid swimming in the water in the summertime, and you're in there for a couple hours, you want to know what are you really exposed to over that 2-hour period. What we're able to do is mimic that, and we're going to release what the exposure is and what the contaminants levels are over that 2-3 hour period.
I understand that certain types of chemicals like arsenic and mercury tend to accumulate in the invertebrates and then into the fish, because these organisms consume each other, so the metals get passed up the food chain. That also means that the fish could be contaminated and sent, to the market. Is this a source of fish? Do people fish here?
Yeah, that's a very good point, and they've already kind of quietly said, don't eat the catfish. So catfish and other fish and every animal that is up the food chain from that is going to be bioaccumulating these metals or whatever's released. And what we were really concerned about today, we floated down on kayaks, and the banks of the rivers come down. It appears as though the 27 million gallons, when it spilled and the pipe broke, the water rose. And you can see the banks just covered in coal ash.
Yeah.
And the roots, the vegetation, the trees, and there's cows and there's farmland. So all this stuff is being introduced now into the environment in an unprecedented way.
Yes, down the river there seemed to be a gray or black residue. I also noticed there were some green sponge-like materials on the water just below us. Can you comment on what those are?
Yeah, we put that in. I actually invented that product and was used in the Gulf of Mexico. And the little history on that is I realized in the Gulf of Mexico that I was relying for my family, and we as a country were relying on instantaneous water testing. So we were all basing our health on water testing for a split second that doesn't really tell you what's in the water column. So
could you talk a little bit about this invention? We're going to zoom in on it now. It is a green sponge-like material that looks like teeth or hair or large oversized combs.
Correct, and it's open cell, and I based it on biomimicry like the human lungs. if you want to, at the molecular level, it attracts oil and metals like a magnet, and it repels clear water. It's used in filtration in commercial applications too. But for this specific application, we use it to fingerprint what's in the water. And why it's designed like that is to maximize surface area, because if you want to know what contaminants are in the water, you got to maximize the surface area. There's about 20,000 square feet of surface area in what you're looking at down there.
And one other question about this river. How far do these chemicals go? I mean, do they dissipate or do they stay, or how far downriver are they going to go?
Well, this river flows all the way in Virginia, and I don't know if it flows all the way to D.C. or the Chesapeake. I don't know. I haven't tracked it that far, but you can see the current here is moving pretty fast.
Yeah.
So the concern with this spill, from what I've seen so far, is not only going downriver, but these heavy metals clearly sinking to the bottom in the banks of the river. And I don't know how you clean it up.
And then that draws up another question about water purification. This river does provide drinking water and potable water for communities all the way down to the Chesapeake. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, that's why you need to track the bioaccumulation and what's accumulating, because no one really knows. And I would be very concerned about the water. My recommendation is to demand transparency from the local governments and the state governments. And there were some very nice people from the EPA here the federal EPA really does get it, and we need to allow the EPA just to do their job. We don't need, if the EPA were just allowed to do their jobs without any interference, they could solve a lot of these issues. They really want to solve the issues.
Is there any regulation for Duke Energy, or is it at the state level?
Well, it's mostly at actually at the federal level in the Clean Water Act.
Okay.
We have all the laws are on the books. It's the enforcement that's the issue. And in my opinion, if the EPA were just allowed to enforce the laws on the books, the communities and the citizens would be much better protected.
What do you see coming from this as far as the future goes? You don't have any idea? There's no way to predict how long this river may be intoxicated, or
there's what I see coming is that we need there's a variety of technologies out there, and as a scientist I want to see there's some other great technologies at Duke University for testing what's in the water, and we need to work together with everybody, all the technical experts, and come up with protocols to really understand what's in the water. Because right now it's really scary that these instantaneous grab samples, and a lot of the chemicals, now metals, separate from metals, these semi-volatiles, I haven't seen any evidence that somebody's testing for semi-volatiles. Those can be just as dangerous as these metals in the water.
What are semi-volatiles?
So, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons too that are semi-volatile, so they don't dissipate into the air quickly, they stay in the water.
And can you give us a little bit more detail about what these are, what they can do to people?
Cancer causing.
Okay.
They cause cancer.
And they come from the coal ash?
They can come from, coal and energy, and, we really don't, not coal ash per se, but we really don't know what's spilled. Is it really coal? Is it just coal ash? We don't know until we really test the sediment and test the water column and test what accumulated.
What about the pit where the source of all of this toxic soup, so to speak? Can't we test there and find out from that source what's in it?
Yes, that would be baseline, but we'd need permit. Someone should test that, and hopefully Duke Energy, for the interest of the citizens that live around here, would offer to allow that to be tested.
Thank you, Scott Smith. We appreciate your time and speaking to DC Media Group.
Can I ask you one question?
Yes.